Oh my gosh. Can you believe it? 100 episodes of this thing. Um, I, Before we get going, I gotta take a minute to indulge in this because this. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't think we'd make it 100 episodes.
I know they put up
I mean,
with us for 3 seasons and 100 episodes. But I
mhm.
know, wow,
I mean, and you know, to do it right as the national championship happened, right after a Super Bowl, right before a draft. You know, I mean,
I
this
know,
is probably the biggest news part of the season that we have all year. Like,
probably.
because we got so much changes going on. We've got so many seasons starting, quite a few seasons ending. So,
Mhm.
um, but I do want to take a minute. I do want to
I
show the viewers kind of these old pictures. So if you're watching on YouTube, what you're seeing on your screen now is our first episode. And can I just point out how much I hated that camera? And you have it. I sent you the picture. Your hair's shorter. Your beard's not there.
I know.
And let's add in that your room looks pretty different.
Yeah, that's also because when I was first doing it,
Yeah, you were a
it
little
was
bit further down.
over in an empty space over
So,
there that's no longer,
um,
occupied.
you know,
So now I do it from my lovely couch,
yeah.
which is a newer couch.
And
I didn't have this couch when we were first starting. It was purple. You were probably thinking, "What the hell, a gray couch?" Yeah, great new
yeah,
gray couch, no
sweet.
longer purple. Don't have that little space over there in that corner. That's the main reason why I don't do it over there anymore. I
Yeah.
just do it for the nice comfort of my very comfy
Like,
couch.
I gotta say though, there was that, and then now I'm showing them episode 50, and you were at the desk at the time. We were just flipped over. I mean, we went from SCN to TSC. You
I
know,
used to use this mic before getting the mic that I use now,
yeah,
and I would use the picture from the computer,
and
not as great. So I will say that it's shout out to my cousin Manny for getting me this video camera with the microphone on it, because
mm,
honestly the picture on it is pretty good, and I think the sound quality is actually
yeah,
pretty good on it too.
yeah.
But
I gotta also, and again, most of these graphics, episodes 1 through probably 50, I would have to attribute to Zach. Zach Carmian, did a lot to get us started. And, he hasn't been on recently, so we do want to thank him for all of his work to help us get to air. Of course, the partnership for a brief time. And now
mhm.
it's a shame we couldn't invite him, but, I guess that's why we want to, at least I want to thank him for helping us get our start here and get our feet wet.
No, honestly, I
And
want to thank him too. I mean, yeah, the way that he originally wanted things maybe was a little weird, but honestly, he did get us
hey,
our start,
it
and he
was,
helped us along the way to get up to 100 episodes. So I do thank him for that one.
but you know what? Like it was weird, but at the same time when you got like four heads, when you have four people in the kitchen with four different ideas, it's bound to happen. So,
Right.
but thanks to him, this is of course his channel originally, so of course all the thanks in the world to him. And with that, I think it's time to get going here. But man, there's not much difference from when we started and where we are now in terms of looks, because it's only been 2.5 years. But I'm enjoying not
Right.
having the beard. I'll tell you that.
I
Um,
know. Eventually,
I
I
mean,
plan on shaving
I got
probably cut the hair.
I got the shadow, but that's about it. But anyway, we could spend all day talking about how we look. Let's get right to it. Jason, you start this one.
Yeah, honestly, well, I guess NBA fans, you should be grateful that we don't have to have a lockout like we did in 2011. So the NBA and NBA PA have agreed on a new 7-year CBA that will begin next year, 2023-2024 season. So we have some things that have been approved for the new CBA. Apparently, 65 game minimum for players to be award eligible, which this one, I don't know. It makes sense, but to be honest, don't you usually choose your award recipients after the season is over with anyway? So 65 game minimum, I guess, makes sense, but unless they're going to be announcing the winners after 65 games and be like, hey, you're the MVP, hey, you're sixth man. If that's the case, okay. I know they've been talking about it, but I guess it's actually going to be a reality. In-season tournament as soon as next season. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I don't really remember what is the true reason for an in-season tournament. I think it had something to do with positioning for the playoffs, but I don't remember, to be honest with you. This one, I guess I'm okay with. They're going to increase two-way players from 2 to 3 spots, so now you're going to have more spots and can have, like, I think, because it was originally you could have 17 players, but 2 of them are two-way contracts. Now I think they're going to extend it to at least 18 player spots where you can have 3 two-way players and then have a bench of 15. So cool for the NBA for doing that. So they're going to increase the upper limits of extensions from a 120% increase on the current deal to 140%. Probably basically meaning that on current deals they can get a little bit more money, which fine. This one, it seems a little confusing to me, and I don't know if you're reading it, Brian, but a second salary cap apron of $17.5 million over the tax line.
I think that means you can go $17.5 million over, but nothing more than that.
I think so.
So that's like the hard cap.
$17.5 million over. Yeah, I guess that makes sense because usually a team has a hard cap, and what that means in technical terms, people, is that if you're re-signing your players, you have $17.5 million over your initial salary cap to extend your players, like contract extensions and stuff like that, which I think will help out teams to be able to keep a lot of their players. But if I know anything, a lot of them usually don't stay and they'll go where the money's at. So hopefully this can help keep players staying on their current teams longer. Who knows? But it has been stated that if teams do go over the apron, they will not have access to taxpayer mid-level and free agency, which I guess makes sense, meaning that they won't have any money to sign any free agents at all. Wow, what a cluster.
To be honest, I'm shocked they got a deal done because we've seen how greedy NBA players can be.
Right.
And, wanting the moon and the stars and all that. Right before we even went on, you and I and a few other friends, we got into a little bit of a debate anyway about March Madness. And, of course, I'm going to talk about that later. But March Madness versus the NBA. And to be honest, like, if you look at last year's ratings, the NBA didn't even reach 12 million viewers in the NBA Finals. I mean, the ratings for the NBA Finals, the ratings for the NBA playoffs have dropped significantly in years past. While March Madness, the ratings have been up to 20 million for games. So when I see this in-season tournament, I'm sorry, but I feel it's their way to compete with March Madness. because they see the viewership, they see the sponsors, they see everything surrounding it. And they're just like, man, if we can generate that kind of excitement in the NBA season, let's do it.
Especially if it happens around March, then yeah, I guess you would be competing with college basketball in that time for fewer.
They can't put it in March. There's no way. I mean, first off, ESPN would have to get the rights to it. And ESPN has the women's tournament and TNT has the men's tournament. So,
well, I mean, unfortunately, usually in February is when the All-Star game goes, unless they're going to somehow get rid of the All-Star game, which honestly,
I
would be totally fine with.
Might as well if you're going to do that.
Joke as it is anyway. Put it in February. It's about halfway in the season. I mean, because the season usually starts in October. Have it around February. Get rid of, if you want to do it, anything, they should have agreed to get rid of the All-Star weekend in general, and that's when the in-season tournament should be happening. If that's the case, all on board for it. If that's what they want to do, all on board for it. Because to be honest with you, I think dunk contest is a joke. The 3-point contest is a joke. The skills challenges
because half the good players don't want to play in it, and they don't want to risk injury.
And then the game itself is a nightmare and a joke. I mean, the only cool thing about it is maybe the celebrity game, if anything.
Celebrity game, but like they've been trying to push that Elam ending, which if you watch TBT in the summertime, TBT is what started that Elam ending, meaning the target score is signifying the end of the game, as opposed to the time left on the clock.
Right.
So, again, I mean, to me, the NBA changing all these rules is what the NFL should be doing to attract the viewers. At least, like, incorporating some of it. It's clear that the NBA, with these rule changes, with these different plans, to me, I think they're afraid because they've got so much competition that's succeeding that they feel like they're threatened right now with rating drops. I mean, the Big Three has gotten pretty big. You've got TBT in the summer, which is growing year after year. And then, well, you're not going to compete with March Madness because March Madness is future NBA players. A few of them.
Well, they're most. Let's just say most of the players that are like on those big teams usually end up going to the NBA anyway.
To me, it's more like the shock jock method. It's more their way of kind of sticking one game in there that can beat the best March Madness game. One that could throw a surprise element in there in this ratings war. That's what this is. And I'm sorry, I can't be convinced otherwise. And you and I've said it, 100 episodes we said today that we've hit, or as of today we've hit 100 episodes. You can go back and watch a few of them. You can learn very quickly my stance on the play-in tournament, but I digress from this.
I mean, I will say the best time to watch the NBA is definitely during the postseason because that's when the most competitive basketball is played, I think, of anything, to be honest with you. I will say this now. Congratulations on the Sacramento Kings. Took you 16 long years to finally get back in the playoffs, but the Light the Beam era has, been the best thing going for Sacramento. So, congratulations to the city of Sacramento. You finally get to taste the nice first round exit.
Wait, first time in 16 years?
Now you know how Buffalo Bills fans feel.
Is that what you said? First time in 16 seasons?
Yeah, first time in 16 seasons.
Can I spoil your second takeaway for a second?
But yeah.
Okay. So the whole time LaMarcus Aldridge has been in the league, he has never seen the Sacramento Kings in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I had to take that because I saw it. You said 16. I'm looking at the document and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Nope. Of all the times that LaMarcus Aldridge has been in the NBA, he has never seen the Sacramento Kings in the playoffs until now.
It's the first
Speaking of
time since George Bush was president. Let's add that in too.
that, to be honest with you, I mean, I guess it was coming. I was shocked that maybe he didn't get picked up this season because the Mavs were tied into probably bringing in LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm shocked that they didn't. He's a Dallas kid from, I think Fort Worth, Texas area.
Seems like everybody's afraid of the older players.
I know. I don't understand it, honestly,
mean,
because the Mavs could have used a power forward of his stature off the bench, help the team out, rebounds and stuff like that. I mean, even when he was on a net, I mean, of course we know with him, he was on the Nets, he had to retire because of health, came back, rejoined with the Nets. And honestly, I mean, he wasn't terrible. His averages weren't terrible. I mean, I think he was like averaging just over 10 points a game when he was with the Nets, which isn't terrible off the bench. But nobody wanted to take the risk on him. Personally, I think he's done a lot. Of course, if anybody knows about LaMarcus Aldridge, you remember his times with the Portland Trailblazers, and him basically being the star on that team before Damian Lillard came aboard. But even when Damian Lillard first entered the league with the Portland Trailblazers, LaMarcus Aldridge was still there, and both of them with I'm pretty sure even what's his name too? Oh yeah, CJ McCollum. I'm pretty sure the three of them have played together before and had some great years in Portland. But even when LaMarcus Aldridge, who was also with San Antonio too, had his time in Portland, San Antonio. Even when he was with San Antonio during the time when everybody thought, oh, maybe he's going to go to Dallas when he was a free agent, leaving Portland, still was, putting up great numbers for San Antonio. And then the Nets, he wasn't a bad player. I think he's maybe done enough in his career to be a Hall of Famer, but to be honest with you, it just sucks that he's never won a championship. He was a great player. It just, sometimes these great players don't win a ring or a championship at all.
Look at John Stockton, look at Chris Paul. I mean, they're perfect examples.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I mean, Stockton had Michael Jordan. Why he didn't. Chris Paul, probably not this year either. Unfortunately, the Suns, yes, they have Kevin Durant, but they don't look like they're that posed to have a deep playoff run. I could be wrong, but who knows? But as far as LaMarcus Aldridge goes, I think he's done enough. I mean, he's been a very impactful player, multiple time All-Star.
I will say I think first ballot is probably far stretched, but Hall of Fame more than likely.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, so that way there's no straw man arguments, if we do get any straw man arguments in the comments, that I was not saying LaMarcus Aldridge is John Stockton or Chris Paul. I'm just saying that there are great players like those two that have not won rings.
Right.
Okay. So just wanted to put that out there so no one's coming at us in the comments saying,
Yeah.
how is LaMarcus Aldridge on the level of John Stockton? Explain that logic.
Yeah. Well,
Here's
see,
that
at least
logic. If that were to happen,
John Stockton and at least CP3 have been to a finals, unlike LaMarcus Aldridge too. I mean, I guess that's what they have over LaMarcus Aldridge. But I'm gonna change shifts here. I'm gonna go on to the football side of things. Um, Calais Campbell, who was tied with the Buffalo Bills, was visiting them. Also was visiting with the Falcons. Ups and chooses the Falcons over the Bills on a 1-year deal. I think $7 million or something like that. Thoughts on that one, Brian? I mean, is this a good fit for Calais Campbell? I mean,
it's clear to me. I haven't seen the details of Calais Campbell's contract, but I wonder if it came down to money. Because let's face it, the Falcons have money, the Bills don't right now.
if that was the case, then why was it only a 1-year deal? That's
I don't know.
what I'm kind of getting at.
True. But again, I haven't seen the details, so I don't want to comment too much on what it is. But
Right.
I feel like maybe he thinks, the Falcons scheme fit him better than Buffalo. Maybe he's not thinking about ring chasing. He's thinking, what's the best fit for me? And this must have been it. And also, I think now Sean McDermott calling defensive plays, and we talked about this as well before the show. I don't think it's a death sentence in terms of his coaching career. But
no, because what he did in Carolina,
Yeah.
I mean, he had pretty good defenses in Carolina before he became a head coach, so I don't see it being a problem this year.
Yeah, but what I think is with him taking on the extra responsibility, it is going to deter players maybe, just maybe, because now he's got a whole other job on his plate. And we've seen it hasn't worked with a lot of coaches, unfortunately. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's a perfect example of it. He couldn't handle being his own offensive coordinator and head coach. Bill Belichick couldn't handle being his own defensive coordinator and head coach.
To be honest, I did see something about Sean McDermott that, yes, he's going to be calling defensive play calling, but he does have confidence in letting his defense, I think, choose plays too. So, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but I don't know if it's going to be exactly a good thing either. To be honest with you, I don't see it being any different because you would only have to really focus on calling defensive play calling. It's not like he has to worry about the offense at all. So, I mean, he can still be a head coach when an offense is on the field. And then also just, call the defensive play calling. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's only one way to find out and see how it's going to be. It just sucks that Bills lose out on another guy. I mean, they were tied into the one linebacker there of the Bucks, who ultimately did go back to the Bucks on a 1-year deal. It seems like Bills lost out on Bobby Wagner. They lost out on Calais Campbell. They lost out on David. It just seems like that they're losing out on a lot of these big name free agents to help out this defense. I get it, the draft is coming up, and the Buffalo Bills are probably looking to rebuild, to help out the offense, defense in the draft. But ultimately, you had to do something about getting a linebacker, which I would assume that Buffalo is probably going to get one in the draft. They stated that of these younger players are more than capable of playing middle linebacker, but I just think that you still have to go after a middle linebacker. I feel like the only guy that could have been the best safety option for that would have been Bobby Wagner on a 1-year deal. But the problem is that you lose a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who was very talented at the middle linebacker position. I mean, yeah, he maybe didn't look as good as Matt Milano, which I'm grateful that Matt Milano has re-signed with the Buffalo Bills. But the problem is that when you lose out on a lot of these, big name guys, and then you lose out on a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, it almost makes you wonder, why couldn't you have, made the effort to re-sign him in the first place? I get it had to be between Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the question now, because you read off a bunch of guys that the Bills lost out on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know Rich Eisen has said he doesn't think the Bills' window is closed, but is that the consensus now around the league that, man, the Bills' window might just be closed, seeing the emergence of the Bengals, seeing the Chiefs kind of come back into their own this past season, and now, you got the Chargers that are on the rise, you've got the Jets, you got the Dolphins that are going to be on the rise, maybe playing spoiler.
Well, the problem is that Jets, yes, I get it. I mean, we talked about the Jets before and, the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers, but that trade still hasn't gone through yet.
But we know it's going to.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to happen on draft day.
I mean,
guaranteed it's going to happen on draft day. But if there's any team that has really took the step forward, helped out the offense, helped out the defense, it's got to be the Miami Dolphins. I mean, getting a guy like Jalen Ramsey does help out that defense a lot. And then...
See, but when Jalen Ramsey is good, he's good. When he's not, he's not. There's no in between on it.
Like last year was not a good year for Jalen Ramsey at all.
But it wasn't a good year for the Rams in general.
Right. The year prior when they won the Super Bowl was a pretty good year for Jalen Ramsey. I think he's a very inconsistent player, and I think that Miami is going to get that kind of side of Jalen Ramsey. They might get one where he actually can be a good corner, but don't be shocked, Miami fans, if he gets burned a lot.
See, the other thing is those coordinator positions in LA have been a revolving door for the last few years. I mean, it seems like every year one of their coordinators gets a job, or both of them. So it's tough when you got new faces coming in, and Sean McVay is not a defensive-minded coach. So whoever comes in all likelihood, is going to be calling defensive plays. So that's something you've got to contest with. Is you've got new faces coming in, new ideologies for defense, potentially. I mean, I don't think there'd be much that goes into it. I mean, for me, it'd be, okay, we got Aaron Donald. Everybody stay clear while he goes to the quarterback. But, there's more that goes into it, of course. But, I don't know. I just feel like with this, and just all these free agents the Bills have seemingly lost out on, they're not going to get DeAndre Hopkins either.
They're not going to be training for him, and honestly, I mean, the one thing that I guess hurts the Dolphins a little bit too is that they lose Trent Sherfield to the Bills, and I think he helped take the pressure off of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and not having a guy out there like that for the Dolphins, I think it's going to hurt them. It might be beneficial for the Bills because he was a pretty good player for Miami with Tua and all the quarterbacks that they had going on. So I think that he might honestly be better with the Bills than with the Dolphins. Somebody that can be a great slot guy. But if I'm Buffalo, I would think that the top options for them in the draft would be you would have to go after a receiver, linebacker.
Well, I think that's going to be their target, right? I mean,
Yeah, it would have to be offensive line,
but
defensive line. Like you would have to.
I have to say, I mean, I can't help but feel like the consensus, regardless of what Rich Eisen has said, is across the league that the Bills' window's gone. I can't help but, I mean, it's a hard to swallow pill, but I think that's a general consensus among the veterans of the league, is that the Bills' window is shut. That it's clear that every year, to many players in the league, that it's going to come down to Burrow and Mahomes in Burrowhead every year.
Right. It probably will, unless somehow Buffalo goes out there and shocks the world.
I
But
mean,
we shall see. I mean, anything is possible. The season hasn't started yet. We don't exactly know what's going to happen. But to
yeah,
your point, it doesn't shock me. You know, um, but bringing back the pieces of that defense does help. Losing Tremaine Edmonds, yes, it sucks. But most of that defense is still together. So, and that defense has been top 10, if anything, top 5 for like 4 or 5 years now. So, I don't
yeah.
see it being any different heading into this season under Sean McDermott's. Um, you know,
Hmm.
but honestly, I'm going to leave it as that as we will get closer to the draft and talk more about the season when it does get there. But honestly, I'm going to send it over to Brian so he can talk about his takeaways.
All right, I'm going to try to move quick. We're already 30 minutes in, so I don't want to take up too much time. I don't imagine this will. I think I chose some short ones. Iowa and LSU, they will face off later this Sunday in the national championship for the women's side. Can I just say, Caitlin Clark, man, and I've been just reading about her story this year. She's been the top player on the women's side all year. I believe she scored 40 points in her last 2 games. 41 points to get her team into the final or into the national championship. Just remarkable for Caitlin Clark. She will definitely be high up, I think, maybe the number 1 pick in the women's NBA or in the WNBA draft there. So, good game for her. She manages to help her team sneak past the defending champs. I believe that is the South Carolina Gamecocks. They were undefeated going into that game. So, absolutely solid effort for Iowa. And this Final Four, or this national championship, I don't think anybody could have predicted it, man. Iowa and LSU, I mean, normally every year it comes down to UConn, it comes down to South Carolina, it comes down to Notre Dame. It feels like it's really those 3 teams, and it's just whichever 2 get there. So, but Caitlin Clark is a baller though. So I gotta make a prediction here. I think Caitlin Clark and Iowa are gonna get the job done tomorrow or tonight. So it'll be fun to watch. I mean, I might actually tune in tonight because I gotta see Caitlin Clark ball. I mean, 40 points is just difficult enough as it is.
Exactly.
So, but on the flip side, LSU, they're in their first title game. They took down top-seeded Virginia Tech. So, man, I'm telling you, like, this is the weird. I mean, the men's side's been weird, but the women's side of the NCAA tournament has been so much weirder because it seems like, the level of competition has gotten, the competition gap has gotten just so much closer on the women's side. at least it's gone from 3 teams to maybe 8. Whereas the men's side, you could name probably 12, 13 teams that are guaranteed to go, that could go to the or to the national championship. But you have, the surprise factors. You have the Florida Atlantics that are there. You have the Miamis. You have the Yukon, which no one expected them to get as far as they have, and I actually don't know how they're doing. We're recording Saturday night while that Yukon game is going on, and Yukon's up a little bit right now over Miami. But there's less surprise elements on the women's side than there is on the men's side. A lot less. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. And speaking of the men's side, I mean, San Diego State, holy shit. I gotta look up this player's name because, he got a lot of comparisons to Malcolm Jenkins. Lamont Butler, he comes down the court, team is down 1, throws up a 2-point shot at the buzzer to get the win to put the Aztecs into the national championship. And just a thriller. I mean, I wish I recorded my reaction because we were prepping for this show when this all happened. But just a remarkable shot. I didn't think it had a shot in hell of going in at first. I mean, I'm like, oh man, I think this is going to be overtime. And sure enough, he drills it, nothing but net. And on the biggest stage, too. I mean, that is just the fact it's on the biggest stage. I mean, March Madness, you bring it, you got to factor in, that's 60,000 people. So, just remarkable. So, can't wait to see Lamont Butler. Hopefully, they'll play Miami. I just, I don't like UConn, man. I'm telling you. Old Big East, I just don't like UConn. I can't gather myself to like them. So, but with that, I'll take my third takeaway. Hopefully I'll have a pick later, I won't have it this episode, but hopefully I'll have a pick for the national championship later this week. Tune into my social media for that. So, MLB opening weekend, I have to talk about this because it just happened this weekend. Of course, some new rules coming in. The 15-second pitch clock has made its debut. Some shifting bans. The minor leagues, it appears, have gone mostly robot umps. So, oh man. The season's going to be wacky. I think it's going to be tough to start. Because the rules just changed so dramatically.
I know. If there's anything, what is with all these professional sports leagues that just change the rules too much? And it's not a bad thing to change rules to revolutionize the sport for years to come, but it just honestly makes no sense. If it ain't broke, why fix it? That's always why I say.
The 15-second pitch clock has been needed for a while. These games, of course.
I will say that it will help speed up the games for the professional level, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was more so referring to the robot umpires for the minor leagues. Something tells me that's eventually going to be what's going to be coming for the major leagues. They always seem to test it in the minor leagues and then bring it to the majors. So do not be shocked if that's what's going to probably happen eventually.
Yeah. Well, the robot umps is the worst part. Come on. We have to have something to yell at. We can't yell at a computer for making the calls. I'm all for innovation. I'm all for it. I love the we talked about the XFL. you and I really haven't sat down and watched a full game. I've watched probably a little bit more than you have.
I haven't watched it at all, so yeah.
So I definitely have watched more than you. So it's but the innovations there are great. I mean, you have the skybox, which is calling the penalties there. You have the sky judge. You have, the 4th and the 15. And again, we'll get into some of the rule changes for the NFL very soon. But I mean, I'm all for innovation, but some things, you just got to scratch your head. I mean, and be like, what the fuck? Like, the NFL, there's no way you could do robot referees, although I think anything could call better than what our current referees call.
True.
So, but I think, we're not going to see the Astros back. I think that's the first thing. Astros, of course, lost Justin Verlander this offseason, so I don't think we'll see the Astros back there. I feel like the Padres might be back in it. They'll get Tatis back very soon. The Mets.
Is Verlander with the Mets?
Verlander's on the IL right now. He's injured, but he is with the Mets.
Yeah, he's with the Mets, and he's on IL for the start of the season.
Yeah.
For right now, which sucks for them, but hey. I guess it's better to have him on to start the season than towards the end of the season, but hey.
But I feel like Verlander's going to deserve a lot of credit if the Mets can get there. And I mean, I think the Astros will continue to do their job of beating the Yankees in the postseason, but I don't think they're going to do much else than that. I feel like the NL is going to be a little bit more, tough to predict. I feel like the AL is going to be kind of that, conference that's going to be really tough. I mean, because you got the Blue Jays that are still there. And again, I feel like the Astros are going to be there, but I feel like losing Verlander is a big piece to lose. And can I just point out, today, I'm looking through the scores of today, and holy shit, what a bunch of spankings there were across the MLB on Saturday. I mean, 16-3, the Texas Rangers beat the Phillies.
Wow.
13-1, the Angels beat the A's. And then 12-2, the Rays beat the Tigers. So just spanking after spanking. And all I could think of is that gif of Tom and Jerry, where Tom's just like, where the cat's sitting on, which one's the cat again? Tom is the cat, right?
Yes.
So Tom's just sitting on Jerry and just like spanking his rear end with the paddle. Or with his hand there. So that's all I can think about reading through these scores. Holy shit. I'm sorry, I know I'm saying holy shit a lot, but it's like, wow.
Yeah, it is crazy.
So, but yeah, I think that's what we can expect this MLB season. But with that, I think now's a good time to take the Tinkle, or the anchor break rather, when we come back. We got a lot of big NFL news to talk about, some rule changes. We've also got we got a new owner potentially in the NFL. And the name will surprise you, but we'll talk about that when we come back here in just a moment. So, welcome back. 100th episode. Once again, anyway, we just got through the NFL owners meetings this past week, and a bunch of new rules were announced, but I think we're going to highlight some of the big ones here. Players can now wear number 0, and ironically, Calvin Ridley's the first one to announce that he will wear number 0, considering that's about how much money he had left after gambling it all away on his team.
It's also the amount of touchdowns he's going to have this season, too.
Oh. You mean before his mental health break?
Yeah,
Quote.
sure.
Sorry. Look, I mean, I do want to stress mental health's very important, but I mean, yeah, I got an issue with Calvin Ridley's, so I'm sorry. But players cannot launch to make tackles. And by launch, they cannot leave their feet to make a tackle this season. And if they do, it's a 15-yard penalty. Same if they trip a player. Close fourth downs. Now, this is the rule I like the most. Close fourth downs are now an automatic review by the booth.
Good.
Okay. Then, of course, there were rules that were not transferred in. And the biggest one, 4th and 20 on an onside kick. That one was denied. So was reviewable roughing the passer, which, frankly, that to me was a no shit. It got denied. So I guess what are your thoughts here, Jason, on the new rules and the non-approved rules here?
I mean, honestly, I kind of like. I mean, having players wear 0, other than offensive and defensive linemen, just seems a little weird. And I guess it didn't shock me that there was going to be a player going to 0. I don't know if Calvin Ridley is going to be the only player wearing 0. I think Micah Parsons said something about wanting to be 0, which would be odd, or him changing to 11 to 0. It's already weird to see running backs now can wear single digits instead of double digits, which James Cook is now following in his brother's footsteps and going with number 4 on the Bills. It's going to be weird to see 2 Cooks wearing 4 this season, but hey, it's all right.
Hey.
As far as the close fourth downs being an automatic review, I like that. I think that should have been a thing from the start, as it is anyway. I will say that this is the first season where a player is wearing number 0 since 1973, dating back to the Houston Oilers. Yeah, you remember that team? Yeah.
Yeah, the new Tennessee Titans there.
Yeah. But that player was also wearing 00, not 0. So, I want to know if, because of players being able to wear 0, can they also do 00, or is it just 0? That's what I want.
I don't see why not, but you never know with this league.
That's true too. I will say that it adds more variety for players to have new number or different numbers, so they can now do 0 through 99, which is pretty cool. I mean, because there's not any. If you think about it, there's not players that have retired 0. So I mean, it just adds another number to the list of numbers that players can grab. Close fourth downs, I like that. Honestly, the players cannot launch. Makes sense. You shouldn't be trying to launch and brutally tackle somebody down. But I will say that because of that no longer being a thing, it'll be tough for players to be tackling players, which means that they're going to have to start using their hands to tackle instead of launching at players and tackling them that way.
I'm all for player safety, but man, some of these rules are just... they're head shakers, honestly, and that one's a big one. I mean...
the one for tripping being a 15-yard penalty, that doesn't make any sense. I think it should stay as like a 5 or 10-yard penalty, not 15.
I mean, I would just really like to know the logic. I mean, tripping needed to be a penalty. That one is dangerous.
I don't think it equates to being a personal foul penalty.
But I don't know. I feel like if you were like diving and then you hit, like you tripped up a player that way. That's one thing. If you're just grabbing a player by the legs and dragging him down, is that going to be qualified as tripping?
No idea.
I mean,
I would
that's
think. I think what classifies as tripping is if you put your leg out and literally tripped a player. I think that's what it
yeah,
counts as tripping.
but sometimes, that's going to be the easiest foul to draw.
I know.
Because all you got to do is look for the defender's legs. You're just going to stick your foot out there and then just fall to the ground.
I will state this now. What this is going to really do is this is really going to affect how long these games are being played. And the reason I say that is because there's going to be a lot more penalties that are going to be thrown because of this. Because players are so used to it.
But how many are going to get ignored?
Huh?
But how many are going to get ignored or look the other way because a certain player, I'm pointing at Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, probably, but the NFL would still have to call those penalties regardless. But yeah, there's a lot of refs do oversee some things, and I'm not going to lie, they do.
And if we're going to call that, like no tripping, then why don't we just get rid of saying the quarterbacks cannot leave their feet as well to hurdle over players? Because then we're going to get rid of Air Josh there.
Yeah, I know.
Why don't we just say that? Every player has to stay on 1 or 2 feet the entire time. So that way there's just no discrepancy in everything. It's coming to that, and I just want to know what the scientific research is behind why these, is this supposed to cut ACL injuries? Is this supposed to cut like blown out knees, concussions? Clearly not. I just want to know the logic behind it. The 4th and 20, I don't get why the NFL is pushing back on this so hard. I just don't get why they're pushing back on it like it's the plague.
So it would be 4th and 20 instead of an onside kick. I don't.
Yeah, you can elect to take it. I mean, onside kicks are converted like 3% of the time. So
yeah, but very tough to convert a 4th and 20 too. So
and everybody's been bitching for years about the onside kicks and about the kickoffs being the most dangerous part of the game. But yet we're going to ignore that, and instead we're going to make these bogus rules saying you can't trip and you can't launch. It's just, it's like they're seeing the point. It's like they're seeing the main issue, but they're not seeing it.
Right. It's kind of like they're looking past the main issues and going to stuff that they think that might help, but it's not truly going to help.
Like when you look for your car keys and your car keys are right in front of you, you're looking right at them. And then it's like, where are my car keys? That's literally the NFL right now. Where's the, what can we do to solve injuries? And they're looking right at this onside kick rule. And they're like, okay, what can we do to solve that? Oh my God. It's also like the Patrick wallet argument in a way.
Right.
Of it's not my wallet. I don't know. But the other rule, and this one I said was no shit, reviewable roughing the passer. That rule was never going to get passed. And, I think the offense or the pass interference review was the worst call or the worst rule they made. It just verified, the refs are just going to double down.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's sad that they call roughing the passer when they barely even touch it. So honestly, I feel like this one maybe shocks me that it didn't get approved for being reviewable, because a lot of times they'll call roughing the passer when they don't even really barely even
But
hit the quarterback. They barely lightly tap him and then gets called roughing the passer.
but
So
but that being reviewable, I think back to the year that pass interference was reviewable. You'd have a better
mhm,
chance of converting an onside kick than you would getting that call overturned.
right.
So it's good, honestly. And you want to know what? If you have an issue with roughing the passer, and I've said it throughout football season, and I'm going to continue to double down, it's time to start holding these officials accountable. Okay, there are 17 teams of NFL officials. It's time to hold all 17 accountable. And if they fuck up, it's time to get some referees in that reserve that are training, brand new. Get them trained so that way, hey, you miss a big call that determines the outcome of a game. The first time, you're getting a fine. The second time, you're fired.
Well, that also
Oh,
down on
sorry.
the commissioner as well too. So
I mean, that'd be my opinion, but the NFL is very, very much going to keep defending their officials, even though they're the worst in the history of the game.
I
So,
think it'd be worse than the replacement rest of 2012. But hey, I digress.
I mean, could they really? I
I mean,
mean, it
I mean,
seems like this one's worse.
nothing's worse than the touchdown interception of the Seattle Green Bay game back in the
Oh,
day, though. So,
and I'm sorry. Before I go on to the new NFL owner thing, I've got to point this out because this just popped up on my Facebook here. We of course know about the Fab Five from Michigan, very famous. Juwan Howard, of course, a big part of that. Did you know that San Diego State's head coach Brian Dutcher was a part of the Fab Five coaching staff 20
oh
years
wow,
ago, and he will
huh?
have a chance at redemption or another shot at an NCAA title on Monday. Sorry, I just thought I'd throw that out there. The things you find mid-episode. So, but anyway, we're back to football. In the most unlikely thing that we thought we'd see in the history of ever, the Commanders have been sold. And no, it is not to Jeff Bezos, thank God, because he needs to buy the Chargers. Um, the Commanders have been sold to Magic Johnson. And of course, Magic's going to be a minority owner, but it's been sold to the group that will include Magic Johnson.
Hmm.
So, unbelievable. Just the fact that Dan Snyder has officially sold his team.
He kind of had to. I mean, he had no other choice. I mean, he had a lot of heat on him and everything like that, so it made a lot of sense for him to eventually trade that, sell the team. Magic Johnson makes sense. I mean, look at what he's done with the Dodgers. I think that he can do the same thing with, him and his group there can do the same thing with the Commanders as well.
Oh, wait. So,
I get it. Baseball is a lot different than football is, so who really knows? But maybe the Commanders can now go in the right kind of direction going forward and be able to actually maybe be a threat in the NFC East. Who knows?
hmm,
It all stems with new ownership heading into the draft and seeing what they can do.
now, I want to give my official goodbye to Dan Snyder. It was real nice, it was on sale
At Target.
at Target. Goodbye, Dan Snyder. Take Dean Spanos with you when you go. But Magic, I think, will bring a great element to football. I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do. Um, and just it'll be great to get new ownership in. We know the Commandos have been a dump for the last however many years. You know, the Redskin controversy. You know, then becoming the football team, then the Commandos. And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep calling them that. Their stadium, by far the worst in the league right now in terms of needing renovations.
Yep, FedEx Field.
So, I mean, the price you paid for the team, it's going to involve a lot more investment than just that.
I mean, I'm sure they can always make renovations to the stadium too, or create a brand new stadium. So who knows what is truly the plans for the Commanders.
But on the bright side, if we needed a new HGTV show, I think I got one. You know, of course, we got Home Fixer Upper that all the ladies like to watch. You know, some of the guys as well. How's about we get Stadium Fixer Upper, and we have a camera crew for HGTV go in and tape, you know, the renovation crew renovating the Commanders Stadium. I don't know about you, but that might be the first HGTV show that I actually watch.
I mean, that'd be cool.
I mean, I like seeing how these stadiums are built. I love seeing the renderings of it. I love seeing, you know, the end product.
I know if there's any rendering of a stadium that I cannot wait to see in real life, it's probably the Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, the renderings of that, like especially their latest ones. Oh my gosh! I mean, like inside, looks like it's gonna be freaking wonderful.
I mean, SoFi, U.S. Bank Stadium.
Honestly,
I mean, Atlanta's.
I'm a true big fan of the Tennessee Titans renderings for their new stadium.
To me, right now, the top three, it's got to be, you know, I'm sorry, but LA's is nice because it's inside, but it's not inside.
Right. SoFi does look nice.
Then I think U.S. Bank Stadium's got to be in the top three.
Yeah,
U.S. Bank Stadium's unique.
Amazing stadium itself.
And then, I'm sorry, Atlanta's got to be up there too.
Oh yeah, Atlanta, yes.
Atlanta's got the most beautiful stadium probably in football.
Their 360 roof design, that's the most creative stadium design there is. Of course, you know, it took a little bit of time for that roof to actually work, but now that it actually does, it looks so cool.
Yeah.
Especially that it rotates 360 just to open, like that's...
Don't expect the Commandos to get something like that. Sorry, fans.
No, I'm not. They gotta renovate their current stadium before they think about a brand new one.
Yeah. But alright. Probably a good time for Tinkle on this now. Congrats to Magic Johnson, by the way. But Tinkle on this, of course, Kenny the Jet Smith, Charles Barkley, they've been on March Madness duty for the last month, and thankfully for that, because I'm telling you, those two bring a whole new element. And of course, Greg Gumbel and Clark Kellogg, they all bring a great element to March Madness. Well, Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley, they kind of were trying to talk during the Elite Eight. Kenny happened to just talk over Charles. Charles, of course, we know, does not like Skip Bayless. He's not been a fan of him. And he kind of, you know, trolls like he's Shannon Sharp. And he's like, Skip, I was talking, Skip. Don't interrupt me, Skip. So, another shot fired at the FS1 host. And for that, you know, I'm sorry, Tinkle on this, Skip. I mean, it's like looking in a mirror.
Yeah, these guys on TNT are just, you know, NBA coverage should up sometimes. I wonder, I really truly want to know what Ernie Johnson, you know, goes through his, you know, in his mind, having the, you know, deal with Kenny the Jet Smith, Charles Barkley, and Shaq, because they're just jokesters. They have a great time. The four of them really make the TNT broadcast before the game starts. So,
and Shaq just had hip replacement, by the way. We didn't mention that on here. So prayers up to Shaq. First off, I'm sorry, I gotta be a little bit insensitive. Where do they find a hip that big? Oh my god. And then the fact they got a hospital bed big enough for him. I mean, just the 7'2" part. I'm referring to the height.
I know. That is true.
I mean, the guy...
Yeah, you'd be surprised with the kind of technology they have nowadays, to be honest with you.
You'd be shocked how big they make shoes, too. I mean, you saw it firsthand.
I did. Yeah, his shoe is huge. If anybody has me as a friend on Facebook, and I think I did it on Instagram too, but I think it's Facebook.
Yeah.
I went to Naismith's Memorial Hall of Fame, and I was right by. I actually was holding Shaq's shoe, and tell you what, Dan, that shoe is like that big.
Yeah, and like, oh my god, like that's why I had to bring it up. Now again, I bring it up for the straw man arguments. Those comments were not about, anything but his height. Oh my god, that's why I had to say it. But rest up, Shaq. Hope to see you back soon. Even though I don't watch the NBA, but with that, what's coming up on No Final Bell this week?
Yeah, so No Final Bell, we are going to be talking about Multiverse United and Supercard of Honor. So we're going to talk about Impact's joint pay-per-view with New Japan Pro Wrestling and also ROH's Supercard of Honor. We'll still be watching probably Dynamite and Rampage as well as ROH, but right now, but that's not going to be our typical main concern for this week, as still haven't really watched any of those pay-per-views yet, but we will definitely talk about it on episode, I want to say this is going to be 76, 77, something like that. I think 77, but definitely take a look out on that one. So what about Out of Turn 4?
Well, I don't know what episode we're on offhand, but I will say we're going to have a big weekend to recap. NASCAR Xfinity, NASCAR Cup at Richmond, NASCAR Trucks and IndyCar at Texas. And if you know, Jason, I know you don't watch racing, but Texas Motor Speedway is a fucking dump. We'll put it that way. Just look up the track, you'll see it. It's like, white concrete, and it's got like a giant black, like PJ1 resin type stain on the track that makes it so slick. And like, it's a one-lane track, basically, unless you drive through somebody. So, I've made my opinions on that track more than clear in the past. So we're going to recap all that. And of course, get you ready for another fun weekend coming up in auto racing. I believe Bristol Dirt is next weekend for the NASCAR Cup and the NASCAR Truck Series, which will be fun because it's the only dirt race of the season for both series. So, looking forward to that. We'll talk about that. That's Tuesday at 5. Jason and Marty are Wednesday at 5. And can I just say, the WWE, before we go, WWE, man, they're going on promotional stunts lately. First Take, Wheel of Fortune last week. And now Stephen A. Smith and ESPN are posting photos from WrestleMania. What a joke.
I know. And then you got, Logan Paul and the WWE, and then you can sometimes have some celebrities going in there just for the hell of it. Like Johnny Knoxville last year was wrestling in WrestleMania. Um, it just seems like a joke to like anybody to them that like just I get it. It's sports entertainment for WWE compared to pro wrestling, but it just seems like they're just willing to have anybody go in there and wrestle, and then that's why I've honestly stopped watching WWE for so many years. Like I'm more of a pro wrestling guy than I am a sports entertainer guy. And that's why I watch AEW compared to WWE because it's actually professional wrestling. Yeah, don't get me wrong, they have their moments of sports entertainment, but they keep it where it's mostly about the wrestling than it is about the promos and the and entertaining the fans and stuff like that. They really do beat the living crap out of each other. So that's why I like, and that's why it has the TV 14 rating it does compared to WWE's PG rating.
Yeah,
Other than that,
yeah, I mean, well, that's all we got. We got a long episode today. A little longer than we normally go, but again, we can't thank you guys enough for helping us reach episode 100. We'll be back with episode 101. Actually, I don't know if we talked about this. I don't know if we'll be on next week because of Easter, but, we'll figure it out. We'll get it out on our social media. But we'll see you for the next episode soon. Until then, bye everyone.